Mr. Swope, you have about 1 minute.
Thank you. First, I want to thank you, Al, and Bay News 9. I want to thank the Patch and Harvey, the National Armed Services and Law Enforcement Memorial Museum. Thank you for having me and inviting me to this forum. My name is Scott Swope, and I am the only Democrat running for sheriff. And I'm the only one who's sitting up here who can say for sure that his name will be on the ballot on November 6th in the general election. Now, why is that important? That's important because at the end of the primary on August 14th, one of these fellas will have lost the election. And for those of you who are supporting one or the other of them, I say to you, you don't know who it is that's going to win the primary. So what I would ask of you is to listen to what I have to say tonight, look at my credentials and my qualifications, and think about supporting me in the event that your fellow doesn't win the primary. Because the office of sheriff shouldn't be about whether you are a Republican or a Democrat. It shouldn't be about whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's about choosing the right man for the job. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Scott. Appreciate that. You're the newcomer here, per se, in terms of experience in years in your department. Are you in favor of legalizing the use of marijuana for medical purposes or reducing efforts to stop drug dealers in Pinellas County? And mostly wants you to explain your position, because I read a bunch of articles and it's like, I'm not sure where to stand, to be honest.
Well, what I think is that we are in a time when the Pinellas County Commission is considering raising our property taxes. And when the sheriff's office and the taxpayers have to spend as much money as they do to arrest, prosecute, and house, feed, provide medical care to these inmates who are in jail for a marijuana offense, I think people have to take a look at the logic behind decriminalizing it, and I'm not talking about legalizing it and making it legal. I'm talking about decriminalizing it, so it's still a criminal offense to do it. It's still against the law, but instead of arresting a person, taking them to jail, putting them in jail, and prosecuting them, you issue a citation to the person, and they take care of it by paying a fine. So what you do is you save the money that would otherwise be spent in putting these people in jail and keeping them there and feeding them and so on, and you are also at the same time generating revenue for the county in the form of fines. And this is not a novel idea. There are at least 17 states and the District of Columbia that already have some form of decriminalization in place. The city of Chicago just did it recently, and they're looking to do it in the state of New York.
Let me ask a follow-up to that then. You're the lawyer, I'm not. I don't understand this. So are you at liberty, or are the sheriffs at liberty to reduce the emphasis on some crimes, or does the law require that you spend equal amounts of effort in trying to enforce all of the laws of the state of Florida? Would this require legislative action to de-emphasize marijuana arrests?
Legislative action would be required to change the law. Right now, you can face 5 years in prison for having one marijuana plant growing in your house. Now, that's going to take a change in the legislature, and I don't have any control over the legislature. What I do have control over is the allocation of the resources of the sheriff's office, which is one of my major problems with how the sheriff's office has been run. They have failed to allocate the resources on things that affect public safety, and at the same time that we're going after people who are growing marijuana and holding little bits of marijuana, we are the capital of pill mill, oxycodone-related deaths, which is a black eye on Pinellas County.
Okay, we're going to come back and address the Okay, what has the sheriff mismanaged, and exactly how? And I want you to be specific.
Okay, yeah, the mismanagement goes a lot further than a few rogue detectives. That's a part of it, because I know that if the Tampa Bay Times reported accurately, when Mr. Galtieri was confronted with a detective that was wearing a Progress Energy shirt in order to gain access to a house, his response was maybe he's a little bit of an overzealous detective. And in my opinion, that should have been something that he immediately jumped on, instead of trying to give an excuse for it. And then he also said that these problems, he's only been the sheriff for a few months, and these problems arose before that, but yet when you look at his website, it says that he's been running the day-to-day operations for the last several years. Well, a leader takes responsibility when there's a problem and says, the buck stops here, it stops with me, and I'm going to take care of it. And other examples of mismanagement have been where when the sheriff's office is even devoting a sergeant and 3 detectives to investigate simply hydroponics at the same time that Pinellas County leads the state in per capita oxycodone-related deaths is unacceptable.
So you're suggesting then that you should have taken those men that were working those narcotics cases and put them on prescription drugs?
Absolutely. As sheriff, when I'm sheriff, I'm going to make darn sure that my deputies understand and abide by the United States Constitution, and the fact that they obtained search warrants illegally, and now he's touting the arrests that were made, which most of them are going to end up being thrown out. All right, day one, I would enact a policy that is a preferred non-arrest policy for non-violent misdemeanor offenses, and I would encourage every single one of the deputies to issue a notice to appear for a non-violent misdemeanor offense rather than taking that person to jail, which incurs a cost associated with taking the deputy off the street, taking the person to jail, booking, feeding them, putting them through a medical examination, and so on. Bob talks about how it's $106 a day to put someone in to keep someone in jail. Well, these non-violent misdemeanor offenders, you can put them into the prosecution system through a notice to appear. So that's the first thing I would do.
Just to clarify, what is a non-violent misdemeanor? Give me some examples.
Shoplifting is an example. Possession of a small amount of marijuana. There are 100 different examples of non-violent misdemeanor. I'm not talking about domestic violence or battery or something like that. Those people need to go to jail. But if it's a non-violent misdemeanor,
okay, I'm sorry.
All right. The other thing is I would reduce the amount of money that is going into the narcotics division. It's over $5 million a year is being spent in the narcotics division. To me, that's out of control. That money needs to go to other public safety related uses. We need to put a detective back on the human trafficking task force. The sheriff's office does not have a full-time detective that works on that human trafficking task force right now. We need to reinstate the cold case homicide unit. We need to increase the money going into the crimes against children unit. There's less than $1 million a year spent on the crimes against children unit and more than $5 million a year spent on narcotics. There's something that needs to be adjusted there.
Okay. Let's talk about deputy salaries. And this is for Ricewell, Harry, and Swope. Some of you have indicated you would like to see deputy salaries increased by 3%.
Well, the short answer is that it's going to be very difficult in the short run to increase their pay by 3%. One of the things that I would look at doing is eliminating the $1.6 million that's going to be spent on safe harbor. And I would look to use that money to...
Please, no pause, thank you.
That money could be used to compensate the deputies and give them a little bit more pay. It still would not recover the money that Governor Scott took away from them when he eliminated that 3%. But I know we're going to talk about safe harbor a little bit more. But,
yes, we will.
Okay, then I won't cover it now. I just don't think it's appropriate for the sheriff's office to be running that program. I do believe homeless shelters are necessary, and it's just not the sheriff's responsibility. All right, I know this may shock you and some other folks here, but I'm a Democrat and I'm a member of the NRA and Enterprise Sportsman of Florida. I'm a concealed weapon holder. I carry a gun with me almost everywhere I go, wherever it's legal. If I go to visit Bob in the sheriff's office, I have to leave it in my car, but I am definitely in favor of the responsible ownership of firearms and protecting the Second Amendment right that we have to do that. Now, getting to the open carry law, there have been many studies that have shown that states with open carry laws do have a lower incidence of violent crimes. Now, whether that's directly related to the open carry law or not, I don't know. I don't know if there's a correlation there. But what I can say is that I am in favor of the responsible ownership and possession of firearms. So I would not be in favor, I think, of an unregulated ability of people to open carry firearms. However, I think if people show, if they are able to prove that they have gun control, they can hit their target, if they know that if they know how to use the weapon, if they understand what the laws relating to self-defense are, if they understand all of those things and they show a proficient use of the firearm, then I think they ought to be allowed to carry it.